Okay, grade 10. Once you've found a function to fit your points, then the next step is to try and improve it. You need to use your knowledge of transformations to do this, but to help you, we can use sliders. So the first thing you need to do is you need to enter the general function, the sine curve, sine or cosine function, depending on which one you've used. Mine's going to be sine because remember I came up with a sine curve, but yours might be cos. So you enter it down the bottom in the input bar, y equals, and it needs to be the general one with the parameters a, b, c, d, depending on how many parameters you want to use. So I write a times sine bracket b times x, and outside the bracket plus c. I used all lowercase letters. When I used capitals, I found that Geogebra gave me some errors. So keep it as lowercase to make it easier. When you press enter, it asks you to create sliders. Make sure all of your parameters are covered, A, B, and C. They were the only three I had. So I'll choose create sliders. And I can see I've got a curve down here, obviously nowhere near my points. This is because I need to change my sliders. You can see as I change them, on the left-hand side in my algebra screen, that function is also changing. So the problem is I need to make sure my sliders are going to fit values that are at least going to be useful to me. If I look at my original function, I had something with 1.25 in it. By default, the maximum is 5 and the minimum is -5. So keeping it as that is actually probably okay for the minute. Maybe I'll put it, but what I see when I move the sliders is it only goes up by 0.1. So what I can change, if I right click on the slider, go to object properties, I might keep the maximum and minimum the same, but I can even make it even more precise if I want. Instead of changing the increment to 0.1, I might do 0.01. You could even make it 0.001, it's up to you. So now when I move my sliders, I see it's moving only by 0.01, which is a little bit more accurate. So I'm going to put it around where I had it initially. My original function, I had 1.25. I'm going to keep it there. Now my b is 360 divided by 13. That's probably useful to know what that is as a decimal. If I just quickly get a calculator, might be easier just to use this. Maybe it's behind there. If I do 360 divided by 13, I get 27 point something. So it's a big number, much bigger than 5, so that's not useful to me. So what I need to do is I need to change my values here. My object properties, I don't need those negatives, excuse me, so I'm going to get rid of those straight away. I might keep it because I know it's 27 point something. I might make it, say, between 26 and 28 because I know that I actually had a pretty good fitting function before, and I'm making my increment 0.01 because it's a bit more accurate. And I'll close that. You see some weird things happened here, but that's okay. And then my plus c at the end was 16 point something. Again, definitely need to change then my maximum and minimum there. Right click on the slider, right click on the slider, object properties. I'm going to make it maybe 15 to, I don't know, maybe 18. Again, I'll change my increment a little bit more so I can have more accuracy. So it's all moved up, but the problem is this looks a bit weird, and I've just realized I think my general function that I put in, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put the degrees in there. So I need to put a degrees, and now it looks better. Okay. Again, a good starting point is to then put your sliders to where you originally had them. So I think that was 27.6 something. It doesn't look like it's really changing. That is because it's only a small change. Oh, oops. There I changed the point instead of the slider. Where's the slider? Okay, here we go. And I had 16.3, I think. Well, 16.23. Okay, so try and get it. So that's what I had anyway in the beginning, something around that. And then it's a matter of playing with the sliders. Now, what is so good about GeoGebra, if I make my spreadsheet screen bigger, is that as I change my sliders, I can change this spreadsheet so it also changes and I can see what the mean error is. So if we go back to our algebra screen here, the general function I entered, it called it g of x. So the only thing I need to change is in the predicted column, and I want to change that to the g function. Okay, before we had it as the f function, that was the original one I found, but now I want to refer to this function. So I want to substitute each of these values for time into this black function here. So if I change that to g, that's the only thing you need to change. Press enter and then copy that down so it changes all of them. And you can see already my mean error has changed. And then as soon as I start changing one of these, you can see the mean error is changing there. Okay. And then it's a matter of, you need to use your knowledge of transformations. You would talk about that when you're making these changes when you're writing your report up. So for example, if, let's say for example, it looked like that, then I would say, it looks like the whole graph needs to be shifted down a little bit, so therefore I'm going to change my C value, which is to do with the vertical translation. I'm going to make that a bit smaller. Again, the B one doesn't seem to be working. Something's gone wrong with, oh no, it is changing. The spreadsheet is changing there, so it's okay. But I think the changes are so slight that you can't see it. But you can see as I move the B slider, definitely the mean value is changing. And as I move the A one, so maybe if it was like that originally, for example, I need to not have such a big stretch, so I would reduce my A, or maybe you need to increase it, and so on. You get the idea. So that's how you can use sliders to make it better. And as I said, when you're doing this, you should have screenshots throughout it as you make each change. Probably a good idea to have a screenshot after each parameter change, and make sure you can see the mean error. You don't have to show all of the spreadsheet. So for example, when you're doing it, you can move this spreadsheet across so you can just see the mean error there, and you can see as you change it then. That's the important thing to see when you make your changes. All right, good luck with that. Bye.